Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for our opening prayer.
Almighty God, you are the source of our life, strength, and purpose. In your presence alone we find health, hope, and life. Guide us during this hour of fellowship and reflection. Be grounded with a healing reminder of your love to all whose lives we touch this day. For it is in your glory we gather and offer our prayers. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Good morning. I'm Peter K. Goebel, the Director of the Rensselaer County Veterans Service Agency. We have gathered here this morning to honor a deceased Rensselaer County veteran for the month of June, and that veteran is Keith R. Gallup. We are honored to have with us this morning his family members, Richard Gallup, his son, Diane Klein, his daughter, Janet Apple, his daughter, Donna Gallup, his daughter-in-law, and Joshua Beach, his grandson. Thank you for being here. Also with us today for our Honor Veterans ceremony, we have Congressman Paul Tonko, representing Congressman John Faso, Ryan McAllister, former Congressman Michael McNulty, representing New York State Senator Kathleen Marchione, Dan Casale, New York State Assemblyman Steve McLaughlin and John McDonald III, our Rensselaer County Executive Kathy Jimeno, Rensselaer County Legislative Vice Chairman Alex Shannon, Rensselaer County Legislative Deputy Minority Leader Ed Manny, Chairman of the Legislative Veterans Committee Tom Walsh, representing Colonel Joseph Morrow, the commander of Watervliet Arsenal, we have Mr. John Schneider, and we have our legislators also in attendance, Mark Fleming and Gary Pavlik. As we are all well aware, Memorial Day and Veterans Day are special days to remember all of our veterans. This program was created to help us honor our veterans all year round. To us here in Rensselaer County, every day is Veterans Day. The Rensselaer County Honor a Deceased Veterans Program represents veterans organizations throughout the entire county. This includes members of the American Legion, the Disabled American Veterans, Veterans of Lansingburg, the Military Order of the Purple Heart, the Marine Corps League, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Korean War Veterans, Tri-County Council of Vietnam-Era Veterans, Heroes at Home, Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, and Vietnam Veterans of America. I will now ask Alex Shannon, Rensselaer County Legislative Vice Chairman, to come forward to tell us about our honored veteran for the month of June, Keith R. Gallup.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, Gallup family. Good morning and welcome to the chambers of the Rensselaer County Legislature. My name is Alex Shannon and I serve as Vice Chairman to this body. I welcome you here today to the ceremony to honor the life and service of Keith R. Gallup. Keith was born October 24th, 1931 in Schenectady to parents Harold and Hilda. The family included 7 children, including 3 sisters, Joan, Avis, and Gertrude, and 3 brothers, Malon, Donald, and Douglas. The family resided in Cobleskill, where Keith received his education through the Richmondville Central School District, graduating in 1950. He had a love of basketball and boxing. The year 1950 earlier, the conflagration known as World War II had ended. The battle between free nations and fascism gave way to the battle with communism. In June of 1950, tensions turned to outright conflict with the invasion of South Korea by North Korea. Keith was obviously a patriotic young man, and just weeks after graduating from high school, enlisted in the Marine Corps. He completed basic training, and then took part in some of the more interesting and exciting events of the Cold War. He was one of 2,000 Marines to witness the atomic bomb test at Camp Desert Rock, Nevada. The event included a mock assault, an objective near the center of the atomic impact area. Keith also had 3 deployments to Vasquez Island, Puerto Rico, an assignment to the Mediterranean Cruise North American Treaty Organization mission. By July 1953, as corporal, Keith was deployed for combat in Korea. He and his fellow Marines were en route to Korea when an armistice was reached on July 27th. On August 21st, 1954, Keith completed his service to his country, having attained the rank of sergeant. He earned an honorable discharge and also earned the National Defense Service Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, and the Navy Occupation Medal. Like so many completing their military service during the Cold War, Keith began building a life. He married Evelyn Dawley, February 12, 1955, in Sharon Springs. They purchased their first house in Sharon Springs and started a family that included 4 children, daughters Barbara, Janet, and Diane, and a son, Richard. The family eventually grew to include 9 great-grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. He supported his growing family, first working as a milkman and securing employment with the New York Central Railroad and Penn Central Railroad. The Penn Central Railroad later became known as Conrail. He had a long career in the railroad industry, starting as an electrical clerical worker, before assuming responsibilities including car inspector, system installations, distribution, and freight supervisor. He retired from the railroad in 1993 after 37 years of employment. After retirement, Keith and Evelyn became snowbirds, settling in South Carolina. They eventually came back and settled in Troy. In his spare time, Keith stayed busy. He enjoyed square dancing, golfing, and swimming. He was inactive in veterans organizations, including American Legion, as a life member of the VFW Post 14,000, and the Marine Corps League PLM 4990. Sadly, on September 28, 2010, Keith passed away, joining his beloved wife, Evelyn, who had died in 2006. He was survived by his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and was buried at Summit Cemetery in Summit, New York. Rensselaer County has vowed to never forget the service and sacrifice of our veterans and their families. Keith is one of such veterans deserving this honor. We thank members of his family for allowing us to honor Keith here today and for their continued contributions to our community. Thank you.
I will now ask Congressman Paul Tonko to come forward.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. The ceremony is conducted here once a month, honoring posthumously those individuals of greatness in that honor roll of veterans who have enabled us to enjoy the freedoms of this great nation and whose valor always reminds us that there's a responsibility attached to each of those freedoms. And this morning we salute another individual of greatness, Sergeant Keith Gallup, who obviously loved his nation. As a young man, moved forward to serve this nation so powerfully. It's an honor to be with our veterans here assembled today, the selection committee, the color guard, and others, veterans organizations represented, and certainly a big lover of our veterans, Michael McNulty, whose service as congressman brought us to this path that we follow to have these recognition ceremonies. So proud to be with him and my fellow members of government as we say thank you to your dad. So to you, Barbara, Janet, and Diane, and Richard, a total honor to be able to pause in our deliberations to say thank you to this individual of greatness. And Joshua and I were talking, I had no idea that there was a Gallup line in his heritage. So great to honor your grandfather. Through several assignments in this business, I had represented Schoharie County many times over. And I just note the great connection that Keith had with Schoharie County in many ways. and his final resting spot, too. And I know that the Gallup name is most respected and revered in Schoharie County. So he obviously kept up that tradition by serving this nation so well as a Marine. Hearing of his involvement in that Cold War and knowing that he was heading off to Korea when the armistice was signed tells us that he inserted himself in a very strong and courageous way, and certainly with undeniable patriotism, having just graduated high school and going on to serve our nation through uniform in the Marines. And also to note that he witnessed, one of the few Marines who witnessed that nuclear bomb test in Nevada. Certainly had great memories of his service to this country. When he returned, as was indicated by our Vice Chair, he built a life, a family, and obviously created a great tree, and served through that capacity of the rail system to keep us connected, to be able to enable us to reach out and share with one another. So great contributions that he made throughout his wonderful life. But his service as a Marine, his willing to serve at a very young age, just reminds us that we are great because of our veterans. And so through Representative John Faso, my colleague and friend, and myself, we made a request to have the American flag flown over our nation's capital in tribute to and in memory of Sergeant Keith Gallup. And it's my honor to present this flag to you today in loving capacity, in grateful capacity for his service to this nation and for enabling us to have role models like him to cherish the great opportunities we have as a nation and to know that many sacrifice, some making the supreme sacrifice to make certain that we continue forth with those opportunities and liberties. So may he rest in peace, and thank you for his great service to country.
I will now ask Ryan McAllister, representing Congressman John Faso, to come forward.
Thank you, and thank you to the Gallup family. Congressman Faso could not make it. He asked me to come here to show his respect for all the veterans and to your father and grandfather. As I mentioned earlier, I'm born and bred in Schoharie County, live there now, and so it was a great privilege for me to be able to come here today and say thank you to you and to your family for your continued service.
I will now ask our Rensselaer County Executive, Kathy Jimeno, to come forward.
Thank you. Good morning. It's really an honor to be here. It's always a little bit more special when it's somebody in county government that we already know and love. And Janet, of course, works for us in Central Services. And so I didn't realize about your father's service, and that's often the case, that we don't realize, even people that we come across in our communities, about what service they've provided to this country, what sacrifices they've made. But to hear about your dad and to think about 18 years old joining the service. And I always say to myself, I think about what I was doing at 18, and it wasn't putting my country first. It was, about the next good time that we were going to have, the next date, the next party, the next event that we were going to attend. But your father saw something larger than himself at that time and joined the service. And as has been said, witnessed one of the most groundbreaking events of history with the testing of the atomic bomb. I hope that when he came back from his journey toward Korea, that he bought a lottery ticket to be on your way, and then to find out that the armistice had been signed was very fortunate for him, though he had served elsewhere as well. And certainly at that time, and any time, anyone who's wearing the uniform of the United States military, we know is a target. So he definitely put his life on the line for us, and then came back and raised the wonderful family that sits before us today, continuing to give to his fellow veterans by his service in all of the organizations. So clearly, his service meant a lot to him, and he wanted to be with other veterans, to share experiences, to help them when they may have needed help for acclimating back into their communities as well. So he continued to give to his country through that service, and as well as has been mentioned, his service to the railroad all those many years. What a wonderful career. We don't often hear these days about people working for 37 years in any one industry. You know, people tend to hop around now, but clearly he was devoted to that as well. So we thank you for your dad's service, for your grandfather's service, and on behalf of all the residents of Rensselaer County, I'd like to present this proclamation in his honor. Thank you.
I will now ask Rensselaer County Legislative Veterans Chairman Tom Walsh Sr. and all the legislators to come forward.
Thank you, Peter. I say this every month. It's always a pleasure for me to come up and make a presentation for a former veteran. But I'm not going to make the mistake of saying a former Marine, because every time I do, I have all the Marines jump all over me. They said, once a Marine, always a Marine. I got to say this, though. The Army finally caught up with the Marine Corps, and now they say, instead of a retiree, it's going to be a soldier. So once a soldier, always a soldier. So they finally caught up with them. Keith, he was in the service towards the end of the Korean War, or actually a good part of the Korean War. And fortunately, he didn't have to go over there. But he was also in as part of the Cold War, and which a lot of our veterans really don't get credit for. And they finally did give credit to the Cold War soldier and Marine, and so that they're recognized now for being in the service at that time, because it's what kept this country strong, a good military force, and hopefully we continue it on. We're going to honor Keith as a deceased member by placing his name on a plaque that goes out on the wall. We have over 200 names on that wall out there now of deceased veterans that we honored over the years. And so when we do that, it'll be probably next, I would guess around April, that we will honor that, put that plaque up there in honor, and we'll invite you there too. So at this time, I'd like to make a presentation to you. It's a proclamation honoring Keith, and it's signed by our chairman, Stan Brownell.
I will now ask Dan Casale, representing New York State Senator Kathy Marchionne, to come forward.
Good morning, family.
Senator Kathy Marchone, she's unable to attend this morning, so she sends her warmest regards to the family. I have a few words to say from Senator Marchone. Rensselaer County Monthly Honor Deceased Veteran Ceremony honors the service of our true heroes, the men and women of America's armed forces. Today, recognizing the life of United States Marine Keith R. Gallup. America is truly grateful for the honorable service and bravery and dedication that Keith gave to this nation, achieving their rank of sergeant and receiving the Good Conduct Award. I have a New York State Senate resolution adopted April 4th, 2017 in the Senate chambers. And the New York State Liberty Medal. This medal is New York State's highest honor. It is presented to the individuals who demonstrated his love for his country and the highest respect of his nation and state, not to mention his community involvement. I will now present the New York State Liberty Medal to the family. Thank you, and God bless.
I will now ask New York State Assemblyman Steve McLaughlin and John McDonald III to come forward.
Well, thank you, Peter. Good morning, everybody. Of course, the colleagues in elected office, our friends and family, our veterans who are here today, but most importantly, the Gallup family. Steve and I both have a citation. The Assembly being the most efficient form of government, only one of us speaks, so you get a little bit of a break. But I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity. People have often said to me, geez, what's that Honor a Vet program all about? And I say, you know, it's really a big deal. And I mean that sincerely. It's an opportunity for us to come together for 30, 45 minutes and learn about another great person who served our country. And when you look at a sheet of paper, you say, yeah, this, and that, but basically we have a man at the age of 18 who signed up and said, I'm for my country. He went and served admirably, came back, raised a family, became a very important part of our industries, particularly the railroad industry at the time, and at the same token, still had his love for veterans. To that, we, Steve, myself, my colleagues in the Assembly say thank you. It gives us the opportunity to remember these great individuals. Tom always talks about it. This wall of plaques that are out there all year long, every time I walk in, I take a look and say, yeah, I remember that one, I remember that one. And it reminds us how great our country is because of individuals like your dad. Thank you very much.
Gene Leparco from the Rensselaer County Honor Deceased Veteran Committee will present the committee plaque at this time. Will the committee members please stand? Please stand for the closing prayer.
Day is done, gone the sun, from the lake, the hill, and the sky. All is well. God of compassion, dignity, and strength, watch over this veteran and his family. Bless him and grant his family comfort and everlasting peace. Amen.
Amen. Retire the colors.
Retrieve colors. Right, eight. Forward, nine.
This concludes our Honor Vet ceremony for this month. Thank you for coming to honor our deceased veteran for the month of June, Keith R. Gallup. Please join us for our next Honor Veterans ceremony scheduled for July 10th. Before we go our separate ways, we'll take a few family photos, then we'll reassemble just after that at the county flagpole to raise the flag in Keith's memory.